Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whitepod. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at White Labs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And my today's special guest is Chuck, Chief Marketing Officer at Blue Triangle, a brilliant platform that helps quantify revenue robbing website friction so you can prioritize solution for the greatest ROI. A big welcome to you, Chuck, and I'm so happy to have you with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Chuck, please let's start with your journey. Would love to know about your professional journey, fascinating professional journey so far, and how Blue Triangle basically happened.
Sure. So I actually started technically on the technology side, and that's what my education was in. And then I moved over to the marketing side after about 5 years, and then spent 10 years in agencies working on big brands, consumer brands. And then I got recruited to a .com back in 1999 in the .com crazy heyday. That
Mhm.
was today we would call B2B SaaS company. Back then they were called ASPs, application service providers. We hadn't even figured out how to talk about software, hosted software back then. And so I've now done this is my sixth startup in B2B SaaS since then. And so I've built a career around the B2B SaaS world and heading marketing. And so I've had a couple of good exits. We had an exit in 2020 with a company that I started with. It was about 2.5 million when we started. We grew it to 50 million and had a good exit. And I did one company in between. And then while I was there, I got recruited by Blue Triangle to come on board and joined the company in May of last year. And in the middle of all that, I actually co-authored a book
Oh,
over my
nice.
shoulder here
Nice.
on marketing, on one-to-one marketing. It was published by McGraw-Hill 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Right. Can you please tell us about Blue Triangle, please, and your role as CMO there, and what sets the company apart in the market?
Sure. So we help, and you did a great job of explaining, but we help companies who are large scale websites, transactional websites, who we help them identify, actually quantify what friction is costing on their website. So there's tons of observability and monitoring tools out there that will tell you have 100 problems. We don't start with identifying the problem. We start by identifying or quantifying the problem. So we can tell them, hey, you might have 100 slow pages, but these three are costing you $8 million a month. The rest are only 200,000. Now it changes how your dev team thinks about it and what they focus their efforts on. So then we can tell them exactly what the problem is, how to fix it. And then on the back end, we can actually tell them how much revenue they recaptured. They can take that to the CEO or to the board and justify whatever they spent in that process. So we work alongside observability platforms and session replay platforms and marketing analytics tools, but we answer the questions that they don't. And it goes back to the whole quantification piece.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. Because the digital landscape is constantly evolving, right? And you have been in industry for so long. You're one of the witness of it. How has Blue Triangle adopted to the changing customer behavior and trends in the recent years?
Sure. When you think about websites, constantly changing, right? Changing every day, stuff happening. So we're constantly, that's why we actually, we don't think of ourselves as digital experience management as much as we call it continuous experience
Mm,
management, experience optimization, or CEO. And we came up with that after talking to a number of our clients, and they are so focused on how do I constantly produce a better experience, because they
uh,
understand when they have friction on their website, when they have a problem, the customer bounces, it costs them money, right? In some way. So the understanding that they're always looking to change. And so what we've also grown into is mobile, right? And not only mobile web, but native app. So we're able to now monitor the native app, do the same quantification piece, because a lot of transactions now happen on the native app, on the mobile app, and be able to do that quantification piece and do all the same things we do in desktop.
gotcha. Gotcha. Can you please talk about few specific key features around this optimization that you basically, quantify altogether and keep an active track on?
Yeah, so we use a combination of synthetic monitoring in the perfect world, and then real user monitoring. And
Gotcha.
we're able to stitch that together. And what we literally do is look at every single session that happens on your website. And
Uh-huh.
we're able to take all of that all the way through transactions, as well as transactions that aren't completed, organize them by cohort, by fractions of a second. And
Gotcha.
that's how we do something called conversion rate curve. and it's
Uh-huh.
unique for every website and for every page on the website. And what we identify is when the page loads in 2 seconds, this many people convert. When it loads in 2.5 seconds, this fewer people convert. When it loads in three, et cetera. And then by looking at all that transaction data, and again, we're dealing with websites typically that have 1 million visits or more a month. We're dealing with very large websites. We're able to take all that transaction data, stitch together, and that's how we do the quantification piece. So in our product has been a three-step process. We quantify the friction, we help them resolve it by looking at the customer journey, looking at the insights, and we're a platform that one of the challenges are when in the large scale websites, you'll have multiple teams that are constantly
Sure.
adjusting the website. You got marketing, you've got the e-commerce team, you got product managers, you've got IT, DevOps, you've got a lot of different people touching the website, and they all use different sets of tools. So our platform becomes a common language where we work across all of that. So once we've quantified and they go to fix it, we can then tell them, oh, okay, here's exactly what's happening, whether it was something that was introduced in a new feature that was added by marketing, a new tag that was put on by the e-commerce team, or maybe something with the servers themselves. We
Mhm.
can identify that, they go fix it. And then the third piece is that validation. We're able to validate what revenue they recovered. So that's the core essence of it. But then we have lots of components around that. We can tell them where broken links, anywhere there's friction. We can tell them where broken links are. We can monitor the core web vitals, which Google uses, and monitor changes over time and allow them to compare to their competitors, how
Mhm.
their core web vitals are trending over time. Which, if you go to Google Lighthouse, you get it. You can see what it's like today, right? But we
Sure.
look over time and start to look at those patterns, and then we also have a way to dive in and tell them why a particular core web vital is not reaching what Google wants and how to fix it. So we've got it's a very large platform in terms of all the different things that we can do, but it basically revolves around quantifying and removing friction in the
Gotcha.
user experience.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So because there's a like e-commerce sector as in whole is on a different level now altogether. And can you please like how exactly do you see the role of performance monitoring and optimization evolving in future? Can you please share a few insights on it?
Yeah. Again, there's been a gazillion tools out there, right? For years, there's huge companies in that space, in that monitoring space, and they all start with identifying problems, right? The challenge is they're typically engineering tools. They're used by the DevOps team, right? So the people who are responsible for the revenue, the marketing teams, the e-commerce teams, the product managers, they're looking at a completely different set of metrics, and they don't need to know more problems. They need to understand the business outcomes. So we tend to think in terms of instead of an engineering solution, you need a business outcome solution. And the more you can tie that back to what the CEO cares about,
Mhm.
right? The more you're going to be able to resolve that. And we talk a lot about and nobody ever wants to go back and talk about the pandemic. But the reality is it changed behavior dramatically, right? And the story I always give my next door neighbors, 75 years old, they had never had groceries delivered. And I guarantee you they would have gone to their grave and never Instacarted had they not been forced to. But because they have suppressed immunity systems, when the pandemic hit, their daughter set them up on Instacart. Today, they just Instacarted this week. So the pandemic's gone, but it changed that behavior. Again, they would never have done that. And if you think about every category, not just retail, but healthcare, how you do doctor visits and how you deal with your insurance company, financial services, how you transact, et cetera. So much of that is online. And so the piece that isn't talked about is um, how that's changed how businesses compete.
Mhm.
Before the pandemic, it was, do I have more locations than everybody and do I have a lower price, especially like in retail, right? Now look at something like Bed Bath and Beyond. They lost all their retail locations. It doesn't matter because what matters today is that frictionless digital experience, and that's how they're competing for trust and loyalty. And so that's driving business outcomes and business changes. So the more that these tools can start to tie back to
Mhm.
business outcomes versus just performance metrics, the more useful they'll become and the more directional we'll know where the teams will know what to do about it.
That's nice. That's nice. And cybersecurity concern is a growing concern for online businesses. How exactly your platform helps clients to ensure the security of their digital assets and customer data?
Sure. One of the dirty secrets or challenges in running a large website is the tags, third-party tags that get on it. And realistically, because it happens over time, and what we see when we go in and we have a lot of tag governance and management pieces, including the ability to enact a CSP, a content security policy. But one of the pieces that a lot of companies don't have is a way to even understand how much third-party content is on their website versus first party because of all those tags. And even when I came to Blue Triangle and we started looking at the website, we had tags from 3 years ago still running, still sending data somewhere on products and solutions we were no longer using, we no longer subscribe to. And so you end up with a lot of old tags. You end up with a lot of tags put on by different teams and people don't know. And it creates three security risks. The first is somebody who's a bad operator can take credit card information like mage card type attacks and do really bad things. The second piece is those tags often have piggyback tags. And so you may understand you put the Google tag on, but Google's calling a different tag and they're calling a different tag.
Yep.
And if you don't understand that, your data, you might be GDPR compliant, they may not be. So your data may be going and violating privacy and compliance, which is a big issue for companies. And then the third piece, and this affects more of the marketers and the business side, you spend a lot of money to get somebody to come to your site to make a purchase. And if you've ever, you may or may not be one of those people who use those plugins where it goes, hey, you can find this over at this other website for $2 cheaper. And
Yep.
it takes them, it basically hijacks their traffic and takes them over to competitors. So you spend a fortune, get them there, that plugin tag pulls them over and takes them off to your competitor's website. With a content security policy in place, you can block all that. The
Mm.
challenge is only 7% of websites have content security policies. And now even the largest, like 1,000 websites, only about 25% do. And many of those are actually not properly formed because it's really hard to do. When you're managing, some of our customers are managing hundreds or thousands of different domains, and they have 25 development teams they're working with. How do you manage content security policies and get consistency across that? So we built a solution around that to make it easy. So literally you can build a content security policy, understand all the content on the site, build the policy and the right code and deploy it in about 3 minutes with our
Mhm.
solution. And then maintain that across hundreds or thousands of websites. So that's a big growing area for us because it's become a big problem, obviously.
Chuck, I've also seen because I've worked with a lot of enterprise clients, e-commerce enterprise client as well. And one of the common things that I see is they've got a lot of orphan pages. And a site having million of pages, managing orphan pages is a big problem. But the other thing that I've witnessed is a lot of these orphan pages might be product pages and maybe like old out of stock products are listed in there. So these type, and this is quite a trend with any big site, to be honest. Managing millions of pages are always pain point. Do you have any solution on your platform which kind of like helps streamline this thing altogether?
Yeah, it's a big problem with these large scale websites. We're a small company and we still end up with 404 pages all the time, right? It's just,
Yep.
it happens. Stuff gets orphaned, you have new content. So it's very common. So we actually built functionality to quickly identify any 404 errors. So it basically crawls all your website, identifies those pages, and it can even redirect to the proper pages. So it can help, for example, if you're spending money on search ads, if you're taking them to the page, we can redirect them to the right page. The other piece of it is the out of stock that you mentioned. When you have an out, again, you spend money, you get somebody come there, they go to that product page and it's out of stock. So we identify that and we actually can quantify both of those. We can quantify what that is costing them and then help them to identify those pages, fix it, or in the case of out of stock, redirect to a different product or different page, a substitute page, substitute.
That's actually a good thing because redirection definitely helps. Maybe like an old page you don't need on your site. When you redirect, the SEO value is being passed to the new page. And that's extremely crucial. A lot of marketers actually and SEO executives miss on that, but that's actually a good strategy to follow for sure. So basically, right now the market is anyways quite competitive for the e-commerce sector and even SaaS sector. To be honest, any online business will have tons of people competing for them on SERP. As you said, that most of it is now on SERP. So how exactly your platform helps in building and maintaining customer loyalty? Is it something that you assess?
Oh, absolutely. And again, it's why most people buy us, because they get the fact that friction,
Yep.
anytime there's some sort of something that causes or prevents a customer from achieving whatever that goal is, whether that's making a purchase or completing a transaction or submitting a claim if you're, an insurance company, anything that bogs that down is going to frustrate people. And what's interesting is there's been studies that so anything that prevents them from completing whatever the transaction is gonna sacrifice trust and loyalty. And there was a study done, and I can't remember what the university was. You
Mhm.
would think that the most loyal customers are those that it would have impact the least, and what in fact is it impacts the most because they're
Yep.
coming to your website or your app more often than other customers. They're
Sure.
more likely to encounter that friction if you've got that friction, and we think of it as in terms of a ladder. In fact, we have our own podcast that we do, and somebody just said this on one of the episodes. It's the more a customer purchases from you, the higher they go up that ladder of loyalty. When they have a bad experience, whether it's how you can, what's happening on the website, a slow page, a broken link, they can't add something to the cart, something like that, or it could be your digital experience went well and the physical delivery went horribly, something like that. They fall from a higher point, right? If they get really
Yep.
unhappy, it's a much more painful fall if
Yep.
your most loyal customers are the ones that are doing it. So we're just extremely passionate about this idea of frictionless digital experiences. And we're out there in market constantly challenging the status quo. There's a lot of studies. Oh, your website needs to be 2 seconds because that's what, or your web page has to load in 2 seconds because that's what Google says. Or Amazon says for every second you don't load, it's worth this. Everybody, there's so many um, uh, opinions out there and so many of these studies and stuff. And what we found, because we work on over 200 websites, 200 major brands. And what we find is it varies. Your population is different. Your customers are different. Their expectations
Sure.
are different. What the transaction they're conducting with you is different. And so your site may not need to be as fast as your competitors. They may be more patient. And so you really have to analyze every page on your site as unique. And on your site, don't compare that to your competitors because their population may be different. Their
Mm.
expectations may be different. The devices are coming in off may be different. So we're out there. It's that, and that's just one example of this point of view that we're trying to take in the industry and start to really be evangelist on. You've got to tame that friction. You've got to figure out the friction and constantly be focused on delivering frictionless digital experiences.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, Chuck, let's talk marketing. I would love to know
Sure.
what exactly you do for your own region and any effective strategies that can share with us.
And I will tell you that, and I've made this comment a couple times in the last week. The playbook we had for demand gen and lead gen 2 years ago doesn't even work today. The world is changing so fast, the way people buy in the B2B world. And so we've really transitioned our marketing to recognize that. And we are taking the classical splitting the funnel, where we're doing both demand gen and demand capture, and they're separate motions and different motions. And so we're not trying to force people the first time they come to our website to sign up or go for a demo. We understand that they want to remain anonymous for a long period of time. They aren't ready to interact with a salesperson. They want to do 80% of the transaction before they ever get to the salesperson. So we have built a ton of content and our whole website structure around that. And we're enacting a lot of programs. So things like developing a podcast where we
Mhm.
can get opinions out there, and we're interviewing industry leaders from major retailers, for example, major healthcare companies, financial services companies, and starting to evangelize that because we know over time, if they start listening to podcasts and they start liking what they hear, they're going to come check out what does Blue Triangle do. And so we're doing that. We've got our own newsletter. We're doing a lot more content than we ever did. And we've gone completely away. We don't report on it. We don't care about leads. We ungated. We've ungated most of our content. We're ungating the rest. We're making it easy to get access because we studied it. We tested gated versus ungated, and it was costing us about $170 a lead when we gated it. We can get an interaction or engagement with our content for about $11 if we ungate it, because all the people that otherwise would have bounced get into the content and get access to it because they don't have to give up their email. So it's been a major shift, and it's been an education inside the company because everybody thinks leads, and we got to train the salespeople. We got to get the exec team to understand. No, it's a kind of a different world today. And what we're really looking at is how many demo requests, how many inbound demo requests are we getting? What are we driving in terms of pipeline? So we report completely on pipeline now is how we're
Mhm.
measured.
Inbound is something which caught you really well. You have that
Yes.
ideology altogether.
Yeah.
So, I-
And in the end, we don't exactly know where it's all the time where it's coming from, right? It's not that simple. Oh, I spent $1 on search and it comes in. That's demand capture, maybe, but I spent $1 and get somebody to download an ebook. They might
Mhm.
not buy for 6 months. They may not come in. And so tracking that and attribution models and all that stuff, we've moved away from that. And we just look at, are we engaging our ICP, our ideal customer prospects? Are
Mhm.
we getting engagement from, are getting to come back? We measure, do we get them to return? And then we look at when they convert to a demo and
What
students.
channels do you leverage then, Chuck? You mentioned your newsletter is one for remarketing your prospects. So that's one. Do you leverage any other channel around?
Sure. We're doing typical paid channels. So we're doing paid social, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're doing some paid display. So some Google. We obviously are doing paid search. The challenge is because we aren't, when we sell, we're not trying to get rip and replace. We're not trying to get them to take a competitor and rip them out and put us in. Because we work with all of the competitive solutions and we actually answer new questions, it's very
Mhm.
hard to find somebody searching for what we do. If they just search for for observability, they're probably not a good prospect for us. They're probably somebody in DevOps. They're probably somebody just looking for a new observability platform, which is not exactly what we do. So anyway, sorry, long answer to your question. So we're doing that, but we're very passionate about developing our own first party data. Again, it
Mhm.
comes from my background and my thinking on one-to-one marketing. So through the podcast, through the newsletter, through those channels, we're trying to drive that first party information for people who want to hear from us, who care about the opinions and the education that we bring to the market. And then that gives us that audience that we can keep going back to and that we can own and we're not constantly paying for.
Gotcha. Yes. What advice do you have for other CMO and marketing professionals looking to improve the digital performance and optimize the customer experience in today's age altogether?
Gosh, never stop learning. I listen to 5 podcasts a weekend because the world is changing so fast. And I'm telling you, the playbook I was running 2 years ago, dramatically different. And so there's a lot of wisdom out there that people are willing to share. Seek it out and constantly test new things, just like we did, where we went away from between Q1 and Q2, went completely away from gated.
Mhm.
And it's worked really well. It's driven a lot of pipeline that we otherwise might not have driven. But the only way we do those things is because I'm constantly learning. I constantly assume, even though I've been doing this for decades, uh, I know the basics of marketing, but how you implement it and what's happening in the world is changing so dramatically that if you ever stop learning, you'll die.
Every day there's a new tool out, to be honest, helping with one or the other thing. And if you don't keep yourself updated, definitely you'll fall behind in
Absolutely. Yeah.
competitive world altogether. So
Yeah.
yeah, do agree. What's next for Blue Triangle? Are there any exciting developments? AI is a big thing now, and any upcoming project you can give us a sneak peek on.
Yeah, we all, of course, always have things on the product roadmap and developing, but I'm particularly excited about is we just hired a new chief product officer who just started this week. A really strong guy, Amir Rosenberg, who came from Capital One and also from the observability space. So I am sure once he gets in and gets up to speed, he's going to be working on a lot of that. And AI is obviously a piece that we want to definitely look at and figure out how we work in. We already work with big data and machine learning, but how do we take it to the next level with AI? So I'm sure we'll be looking at that. But we've got several products on the roadmap that we'll be coming out with in the next 3 to 6 months as well. And we're constantly evolving. It's the beauty of B2B SaaS, right?
Yeah.
There's new instances coming out every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So
Right. Okay. I think we're coming to an end check, and I would like to have a quick rapid fire with you. Are you ready for that?
sure.
What is your last Google search?
Oh gosh, I'm sure it was just it was cars for under $10,000. I was looking for a car for my daughter.
Okay. Okay. What is not a big deal to most people, but it's a torture to you?
What drives me nuts? That kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's like something which is normal for other people.
Oh, it'd be normal. I know I've got to be careful how I say this, but I tend to have several OCD characteristics. So things like I always drink from the yellow cup.
Okay.
And we have 5 different colors, but when guests come and they use the yellow cup, it drives me crazy because everybody knows I get the 2 yellow cups. All the other colors, everybody else can drink. So I have a lot of little goofy things like that that people don't even know.
All right. What world record do you think you have a shot at beating?
World record? Holy
Yep.
cow. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I might have a chance at beating. Car accidents, maybe? I don't know. I've had a string of them lately,
Oh God.
or a couple of years ago, maybe.
Okay. Are you more cautious or bold?
I would definitely say bold.
Okay. And do you watch shows one episode at a time, or do you binge watch the whole season?
I have gone the way of binge watching. I prefer, in fact, I record some shows. I wait until I got at least 3 or 4 episodes so I can
Okay.
watch them in succession. But yeah, my wife and I have been binging a few series on Netflix lately.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chuck, for all the time, all the wisdom, all the knowledge that you have shared in today's session. Really appreciate it. Thank
Well, thank you, Harshit. I appreciate you inviting me.